Assalamu alaikum. I'm Abida and today we are going to discuss steps in a typical chemical analysis. Before going to discuss about steps in a typical chemical analysis, we have to go through number of factors. The first one is what is the problem and what needs to be found. So to an analytical chemist, you can have different kinds of client. For example, your client can be Environmental Protection Agency, or he or she may be a pharmaceutical chemist, or she may be your grandmother. So you must first know that what is the problem and what needs to be found, and also whether you want to do qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis depending upon the requirement of your client. So your client may be a layman who, for example, want to find the total number of elements present in his or her sample. So you must clarify, or you must inform him or her that there are millions of compounds present. For example, if she or he has a sample which has a number of elements and she want to determine all the elements present, so you must clarify her that there are, for example, 85 elements and each element, for example, can cost $20, and then she or he has to pay 85 into $20, that is $1,700, which is quite a lot. So first you need to clarify all the ambiguities and need to tell your client that what can be the problems, and also whether they need qualitative or quantitative analysis, because as we have discussed in the previous lectures, some tests they need to be only qualitative, while we have to go for quantitative analysis only in limited number of cases. And also what will be the information used for what, who will use it. For example, you may come across a cosmetic person who want to do reverse engineering for a cosmetic product, so that they may be sure about the products, about the chemicals present, for example, in this cosmetic product, and then after doing reverse engineering they can make this product from a low cost, and then they can be fortune, for example. But then you have to tell them that there are a number of processes. In that case we have to perform qualitative as well as quantitative process, and maybe the cost of this process is much more. So you must be sure that what kind of analysis is needed and what is the need of your client. Or you may have a client who is for example an anxious mother, and whose son has stated that the tablet he is showing or he is taking usually most often is vitamin C, and it is of white color. So although you cannot perform test on this tablet, but if he is of the view that there is vitamin C, then it should at least give test for ascorbic acid. So in this way, which is vitamin C, so you can fulfill the need of this anxious mother. And yes, when will it be needed? So as I have previously mentioned, that you can perform your test as a low cost if you are sure that what type of tests are needed. So then you do not need to perform unnecessary tests which can cost more. How accurate and precise does it have to be? This is a very important point, right? So it will depend again upon the requirement of the client, that how much accuracy and precision he or she is needed. And again, more accurate and more precise result also increase the cost of the measurement. And again, what is the budget? Yes, this is the limiting factor. This is the main criterion actually, that how much amount you have and how much money you can spend in order to perform a test. The analyst should consult with the client to plan a useful and efficient analysis, including how to obtain a useful sample. Yes, so the sample which analyst will take from the whole quantity. Actually, of course, if we have a very big sample, then we cannot perform test with the whole sample, whole material. We will only take a sample of this material. So the sample actually should be representative of the whole material. So analyst should be sure about that the result she or he is reproducing, this should represent the whole material. So in this step there are various types of statistical analysis involved. Then we have to select a method, that which sample type we are going to use, then size of sample preparation needed. Some tests they also need sample preparation. For example, they need derivatization, precipitation, or sometime we have to extract the sample by means of solvent extraction. So we must be sure that in which type the sample should be present, so that we can perform an analysis. Concentration and range, yes, these are different factors. How much accuracy and precision needed, which tools, yes, and instruments available. So we have to prepare the samples according to the tools or instruments which are available. For example, if we want to measure the concentration of a substance by means of UV visible, so we have to make a diluted sample, and we must be sure about that how much dilution factor is, and then we can multiply this dilution factor with the result at the end. And analyst will also be sure that about his or her expertise or experience, so that he or she can make good result. Cost and speed of the experimentation, does it need to be automated? Yes, then you can if you can make it automated, then you do not need to present all the time on the machine, and you can just feed the instructions, and then machine will take the sample and operate automatically, and then it can make your work much easier. Are methods available in the chemical literature? Oh yeah, this is a very important factor, right? This is very important thing, that the method you are using, whether it has already been used in the literature, or you are going to make a new protocol. Are standard methods available? Sometime we have to make a new method, and if standard methods are available, that will be very good. But sometime we have to be innovative to make the measurement. Or are there regulations that need to be followed? Yes, this is also very important point, and that we need to follow, that the methods which we are going to use are these legal, and legally they are approved. So we have to consider all these facts and figures in order to perform analytical process. as we have already said, obtaining a representative sample, this is very important. For example, if we have a very big community out of which we have to perform some experimentation, then the sample which we will select, this should be a representative of the community. So we have to then consider factors that which type of sample we should take. Sample should be homogeneous so that it can represent the whole community. We should also be concerned about the size. So we should select a sample size which can represent the community, and then we will perform on it sample statistics and how much error we can accept. So we have to consider all these factors. Then prepare the sample for analysis. As I have already said, that some instrumentation, they required that the sample should be present in a specific physical state. For example, on UV visible spectroscopy, we can perform result in liquid state. So if we have a sample in solid state, then we have to perform we have to make first its dilute solution, right? So likewise, sample may be liquid or gas, and the instrument which we use, if it need solid sample, so we have to derivatize by means of derivatization or some other mean. We have to convert this liquid sample into solid, or sometimes the sample is in gaseous form. So we will select a technique or instrument which can analyze the sample in gaseous form, right? Again, we have to select the, for example, regions in which sample is soluble, or we have to make, for example, ashes, like in elemental analysis we have to burn the chemical compound, and then at the end we can get ashes. So it depends what is our requirement. Chemical separation or making of interferences needed. Sometimes the sample require separation of its components, so we can use chromatographic techniques, for example, for the separation of different components, and then we can perform analytical or qualitative or quantitative analysis. Need to concentrate the analytes. As in the previous discussion, I have mentioned that we have to dilute the sample. So sometimes we also have to concentrate the sample. So for in order to make concentration, for example, we can use the process of evaporation, and in this way we can get the sample in concentrated form. Need to change the analyte for detection, already we have discussed, and sometimes we also have to adjust solution conditions, for example pH, by adding some kind of reagents. Then when we will have a sample in the proper form, then we can perform, for example, any necessary chemical separations. For chemical separations we can use, we have already discussed bit. So for necessary chemical separations, the techniques which we can use, these are distillation, precipitation, solvent extraction, solid phase extraction. We can use chromatography, and we can use, for example, electrophoresis for addition of components of mixture. Then the other factors which we need for performing the measurement, it is calibration, validation of the method which we are using, right? And then we have to perform experiments in replicate. So all these are the requirements or the factors which are necessary for performing the measurement. Then we will calculate the results, and then we will make a report on it, and it will include statistical analysis. And statistical analysis which we will use, we must be sure about it, that which kind of statistical analysis is the requirement of the method, and then we have to report results with limitations, accuracy information. An analyst cannot report result as 0% or 100%. For example, if we are provided with a sample of water in order to check its purity, so we will make a report that what kind of elements or what kind of substances are present in it, and then yes, we can mention in the report the safe limit, for example, of these elements. So then the customer itself will decide, depending upon the results you have provided to him or her, that this water is drinkable or not. So you will only give the limits or the results and a report, but the customer will itself decide that these types of material are present in the water sample, so he or she can decide himself or herself that the water is drinkable or not, depending upon your recommendations. Interpret carefully for intended audience. Yes, you have to make the results very critically. You have to evaluate the results very critically, and if any alterations these are needed, so you have to perform the results again and again. So